Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot into a world that's equal parts dazzling and disastrous ancient Indian palace life through the steamy, slippery lens of its most overlooked ordeal, the royal bath. Imagine gleaming courtyards, echoing halls of carved stone, the scent of jasmine in the air, and then picture yourself sweating in layers of humidity, wrestling with soap made from goat fat, and dodging sacred pigeons that treat the bathhouse like their personal runway. You're probably thinking, how bad could it be? It's a palace. Well, let's just say, you probably won't survive this without some inner peace and a strong immune system. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I always love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's nearly dawn when you arrive at the gates. Not the smooth, gold-leafed fairy tale kind, but giant slabs of sun-scorched stone that creak open like ancient teeth yawning. A camel grunts as you pass. The air is heavy with incense, sweat, and something vaguely curry-adjacent. A peacock screams from somewhere above, which is exactly as relaxing as a trumpet made of nightmares. You trudge through a path lined with fragrant marigolds and, curiously, several piles of dung. Welcome to your royal spa experience. The guards are shirtless, sunburnt, and armed with spears that look more decorative than deadly. They don't greet you exactly. One just waves his hand in a slow spiral, motioning you forward as if herding a particularly clueless goat. Inside the main gate, the architecture is astonishing. Sandstone domes, scalloped arches, lattice windows filtering early sunlight. Everything gleams gold, bronze, and terracotta. You're walking through a museum if museums had monkeys, dangling from chandeliers. Historians still argue whether this particular palace belonged to a minor, Raja, or an ambitious noble trying too hard to impress. What's not debated is its age. Over 1,000 years old, built during a time when hygiene and ritual were deeply intertwined, but not necessarily compatible. The courtyard opens up, and there it is, the royal bathhouse. A wide square pit in the center, lined with smooth black stone, surrounded by carved lion fountains that may or may not still work. Everything is damp. Not steamy spa. Damp more like someone just rinsed a water buffalo here. Damp. The scent shifts from sandalwood to something more musky. There's no polite way to say it. It smells like wet history. A boy with a shaved head and one long braid darts past, dropping a bundle of herbs. He gives you a wide-eyed look like you just stepped into a trap. You're beginning to feel like maybe you did that suddenly. You're intercepted by an older man in a dhoti who seems to materialize from the mist. He has a ladle in one hand, an intimidating level of enthusiasm. You, he says, pointing, you bathe now. No time to object. You're swept forward into the bathhouse proper, a cavernous space beneath intricately carved archways. Your sandals squelch against the slick stone. It's dark, echoey, and very, very wet. At least 5 attendants are bustling around. One is boiling water in a copper cauldron that could fit an entire yak. Another is pounding sandalwood bark into paste with alarming force. 2 are wrestling with a water buffalo that seems completely uninterested in contributing. It's milk today. You catch sight of the bath you're meant to use. It's rectangular, inset into the ground, and ringed with lotus motifs. Lovely if not for the greenish tinge of the water. A fringe historian once claimed these baths were self-cleaning thanks to a spiritual vibration of purity. That same historian also believed ghosts lived in wells. So, interpret that how you wish. You're guided to a stone bench and instructed to disrobe. Modesty is apparently optional. You're handed a small square of linen that might be a towel or a table napkin. You drape it cautiously and step onto the slick edge of the bath. It's not warm. Not yet. Someone forgot to bless the heating stones. You lower yourself in, trying not to gasp audibly. The water is cooler than expected, tinged with flower petals, and the vague memory of elephant feet. You're not entirely sure it's even water. It smells like basil, salt, and questionable intentions. Nearby, a monkey watches you. It has an expression you'd describe as judging, and yet it's kind of magical. The distant echo of chanting, the flickering oil lamps, the sound of dripping water from ancient spouts. You let yourself relax for 2 seconds. Then the bath attendant returns. He's holding something that looks like a giant wooden spoon and a clump of tree bark. He grins. You're not ready. He begins to scrub your back with the bark, muttering mantras that sound less like blessings and more like threats. You feel like a pot being scoured. You consider asking him to go easy. You do not. He slaps the water with the spoon. Apparently, that's part of the process. At some point, another attendant starts chanting and sprinkling powdered turmeric in the bath. You sneeze, the monkey sneezes. The turmeric floats like golden algae. You are now mildly spicy, and the bath has only just begun. You've barely had time to adjust to your turmeric-infused situation when a new figure emerges from the steam. She's draped in silks dyed a deep indigo, holding a brass bowl and wearing the universal expression of someone who has dealt with far too many pampered royals in their time. She eyes your attempt at modesty, sighs through her nose, and beckons you forward with 2 fingers. You rise gingerly, the bathwater clinging to your skin in streaks of gold and grit. Your feet slap weightily against the black stone as you're led toward the palace courtyard where your next relaxing experience awaits. A gust of wind catches your linen wrap, and for a moment you give the entire household staff a glimpse of your modern vulnerability. The indigo lady does not blink. The courtyard is chaotic. There's a splendor to it, sure. Intricate mosaics line the floor with paisley patterns and celestial diagrams. Parrots squawk from alcoves. Wind chimes of silver and bone clatter faintly in the breeze. A monkey performs a slow-motion robbery of a fruit basket. No one is watching, but there are also suspicious stains, chipped tiles, the faint smell of fermented lentils. A goat wanders by. You're not sure if it belongs to the palace or is just visiting. You're led to a platform in the center of the courtyard. It looks ceremonial, circular, marble, raised just enough to make you feel exposed. Someone has scattered rose petals. Across it, someone else has also tracked in muddy footprints. This is where you're meant to be anointed. Sit, says the woman. It's not a request, as you settle into a cross-legged position on the cool marble. Another attendant arrives. He's holding a bowl filled with some kind of oil that glistens like liquid amber and smells like roasted sesame and regret. He says something about blessings and chakras, then promptly tips a ladle full of the stuff onto your head. It's thick, sticky, and absolutely going in your ears. Historians still argue whether these courtyard rituals were primarily spiritual, medicinal, or just an excuse for noble families to show off their imported herbs. The answer, like the oil in your eye, remains unclear. A third attendant begins rubbing the oil into your scalp, vigorously, with what feels like the blunt ends of her elbows. You start to relax. Then she starts chanting loudly. You are now the centerpiece of a scene that could either be an ancient purification rite or a very niche cooking tutorial. Around you, other servants bustle. Someone is trying to relight a ceremonial lamp with a twig that refuses to catch fire. Someone else is crushing betel leaves with a rock the size of a loaf of bread. The courtyard is alive with activity, and almost none of it is comforting. You glance up. The sky above is beginning to turn white-blue. That crisp edge of morning when the heat hasn't hit yet, but promises it will. Birds flutter overhead. One drops something suspiciously white onto the platform's edge. You scoot sideways, and then, without warning, you're doused with cold water again. A boy no older than 10 has dumped a full bucket of it over your head, grinning like this is the best part of his morning. You splutter, blinking through strands of oil-slicked hair. The indigo woman claps once, apparently approving of the technique. Clean now, she says. You are not clean. You are a soup of oil, turmeric, courtyard dust, and emotional confusion. Someone wraps a fresh cloth around your waist and motions for you to follow. You do, dripping and slightly stunned. You pass a carved wall depicting gods and demons locked in cosmic battle. One of the demon faces looks how you feel, mildly overwhelmed and very slippery. In the corner of the courtyard, you spot what might be a makeshift animal washing area. A baby elephant is being sponged down with coconut husks. It looks deeply unimpressed. Across from it, a cow chews on a garland. A rooster struts by, arrogant and scented like incense. You're starting to feel like just another creature in the palace's elaborate ecosystem. A servant hands you a cup of something steaming. It's labeled refreshing tonic. It tastes like mint, pepper, and floor cleaner. You nod politely and hand the cup back. There's a sudden clang. Someone's dropped a brass dish. The noise echoes through the marble arches, startling a nearby peacock into screaming its soulful disapproval. You flinch. The boy with the bucket laughs again. A fringe theory once claimed that these palatial bathhouses were designed more for spectacle than comfort. The argument? No one truly wants to relax with 50 servants and 3 sacred animals watching. Standing. Here, dripping oil onto 1,000-year-old tiles. You begin to see the logic. You're directed back toward the inner bath chambers. Apparently this was just a warm-up. A pre-bath ritual before the real thing. Like a trailer for a movie you're already halfway regretting buying tickets to. The stone under your feet is warm now. The courtyard sun rises faster than you'd expect, already baking the arches in gold. Somewhere in the palace, a conch shell blows. Somewhere else, someone sneezes violently, and then says a prayer. As you reach the next threshold, you're handed a bundle of herbs and a fist-sized clump of black paste. The attendant gestures to rub it over your body. You sniff it, Dot. It smells like mustard seeds and possibly ash. You're about to ask what's in it when she says, charcoal, ghee, cow dung, sacred. You nod. Slowly, Dot, the door opens again. More mist, more marble, more mystery. Another round of not quite clean begins, and this time you're not even pretending to know what's coming next. You're ushered into a dim hallway lined with flickering oil lamps set in carved niches. Their tiny flames casting shadows that dance like gossiping spirits. The scent shifts again, less floral, now more smoky, more serious. You feel the paste beginning to dry on your arms, stiffening like medieval armor made of compost and devotion. Dot, at the far end of the hall stands your new companion in suffering, the bath attendant. He's tall, lean, wrapped in a white dhoti stained with mysterious patterns that probably aren't decorative. His eyebrows are one long, skeptical arc. He eyes you the way someone might eye a goat that insists on climbing stairs. Backwards, Dot, this is the man responsible for keeping you from drowning, slipping, or doing something irreparably offensive with a ceremonial sponge. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't need to. His glance says it all. You're soft, you're lost, and you're about to learn what deep exfoliation really means. With one hand, he gestures toward the next chamber. With the other, he casually slaps a fly off. Your shoulder hard. You're not sure if that was for the insect or a preview of your massage technique. Either way, you're now officially alert. Dot, inside. The light dims further. The walls are damp and decorated with frescoes of people bathing under celestial waterfalls. None of them look even remotely as confused as you do right now. You're positioned beside a massive stone tub that looks like it could comfortably fit 3 crocodiles or 1 nervous tourist. The attendant points to it. Sit, he says. Dot, you sit. The paste on your skin is cracking slightly, and when he begins to pour warm water over you from a brass jug, the mixture liquefies again into strange rivulets. It feels gritty, like being bathed with gentle sandpaper. Now comes the bark. He picks up a loofah-looking object that is definitely made from something that once grew on a tree and possibly died angry. He starts scrubbing your arms with such fervor, you wonder if he's trying to reveal your skeleton. The sensation is somewhere between invigorating and please stop. You try to breathe through it, meditate even. But then he reaches your back. The bark hits with a wet slap and begins a circular scrubbing motion that feels suspiciously like revenge. He mumbles something under his breath, possibly a mantra, possibly a list of your failings. You learn a fringe detail. It was believed in some regions that vigorous scrubbing helped release bad karma stored in your skin. You begin to wonder how much karma you must have accumulated for this level of cleansing. The answer? Too much. Way too much. Dot. Then he changes tools. A clay pot appears. Inside is a mixture that looks like wet clay and smells like garlic, ash, and a hint of despair. He slathers it across your chest and shoulders, working it in with strong thumbs that seem to locate every spot of tension and punish it accordingly. You're reminded of that scene in every spy movie where the hero gets waterboarded into confessing secrets. Except in this case, you'd confess anything just to be towel dried. Breathe, the attendant says in a tone that makes it sound less like advice and more like a dare. You try, you do. But then he cracks his knuckles and begins working on your scalp again with oil. So much oil that your hair is now a living monument to sesame. Historians still argue whether these treatments were genuinely curative or simply part of the social performance of elite grooming. But if there's one thing you're learning firsthand, it's that ancient Indian bathing was never just about getting clean. It was a ritual, a ceremony of full contact sport. Somewhere in the background, a distant string instrument twangs. It sounds soothing. You cling to it emotionally like a drowning man to a sitar. The attendant finally backs off, eyes you like a pot he's just finished scrubbing, and nods. Good, he mutters. You think this means you're done? You're. Wrong. He gestures for you to stand, then guides you toward another chamber, a slightly brighter one. As you enter, you nearly slip on a polished tile that has clearly seen more coconut oil than a beach resort. He catches your elbow, briefly, then lets go, as if disappointed you didn't fall hard enough to learn a lesson. This chamber contains a low marble bench, another small pool, and a bundle of what looks like grass reeds tied together with red thread. You glance at it. He nods. For blessings, you nod back. Sure. He flicks a bit of the wet paste from your ear, then, quite suddenly throws a ladle of rose water into your face. No warning. Just splash. It runs down into your mouth. It tastes faintly sweet, slightly dusty, and very much like something that was filtered through 3 layers of ceremony. A young boy enters the room and sets down a metal tray, a fruit banana, fig, pomegranate, and 3 lumps of jaggery sugar that look like amber bricks. You're offered one. You take it. It's crunchy, sweet, and full of mystery grit. You nod in thanks. The bath attendant doesn't smile, but he also doesn't slap you again. This may be the closest thing to a breakthrough. You take a deep breath. It smells like cardamom, mildew, and maybe a touch of firewood. Somewhere in this bewildering haze of rituals and ancient etiquette, you realize something. You are, against all odds, starting to feel lighter. Sore, yes, greasy, absolutely, but lighter. Like maybe, just maybe, there's something oddly soothing about having every inch of you oiled, scrubbed, and judged by a man whose expression never changes. And yet you're only a third of the way through. A bell chimes in the distance. Your bath attendant lifts his head, listening. He turns to you. Next, he says. You rise wobbly, blinking, thoroughly marinated. You're ready. Sort of. You shuffle after him, feet sliding slightly with each step, as though your soles have become buttered by every herb in the Indian subcontinent. The hallway grows narrower now, curving gently as though hiding secrets in its very architecture. The light dims again, and the scent changes once more. This time it's animal. Not bad animal. Not dead animal, but warm, musky, and unmistakably elephant. You're about to ask if you've taken a wrong turn when you hear it, the unmistakable, low, rumbling huff of a giant creature exhaling. The bath attendant doesn't pause. He pushes aside a reed curtain and reveals a room large enough to hold an orchestra or 2 elephants. Spoiler, it contains exactly 2 elephants. You stop. Your knees lock. Your brain protests with something along the lines of, "Excuse me?" The elephants, standing in an enclosure at the back of the room, are swaying gently, lazily flicking their ears. One of them looks directly at you and blinks, as if thinking, another one? The bath attendant points to a stone basin set into the floor. Water comes now, he says, and disappears behind a wooden screen. What follows is both majestic and mildly terrifying. From behind a carved wooden partition, you hear shouting, the clinking of metal chains, and then the sound of water, sloshing a lot of water. Moments later, a channel opens near the ceiling and begins gushing into your stone bath, pouring in a torrent of steaming liquid that carries the scent of damp hay tree bark and distant temples. A fringe theory rarely taken seriously by academics claims that some palace water systems were directly powered by elephants. And here, as the great beasts shift their weight and snort dramatically, you begin to suspect there's truth in it. You try not to picture the logistics too hard. Pipes, buckets, elephant bladder hydraulics. It's a lot, the water that fills. Your tub is warm, almost too warm, but oddly comforting. You step in and immediately feel like a dumpling entering its final phase. The stone under your thighs radiates heat. Steam curls upward, carrying with it the earthy perfume of whatever leaves were steeped in the tanks. Neem, tulsi, maybe even eucalyptus if someone was feeling fancy that day. You settle deeper into the bath, neck deep now, and let the warmth sink into your bones. For a moment, it's actually nice. Then the bath attendant returns with a brass bowl and a spoon. You flinch. But instead of assaulting your head again, he simply begins ladling the steaming water over your shoulders. Slow, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. You're lulled into a semi-meditative state until he speaks again. Elephant water strong, he says. Solemnly, makes blood dance. You're unsure how to respond to that, so you go with a cautious nod. Love a good blood dance. He doesn't laugh. He never laughs. As he continues to pour water, you notice the elephants again. One is being fed bananas by a young stable boy. The other is slowly chewing something green and fibrous, its tail swishing lazily. You wonder if they get baths too. They probably do. You hope so. It seems only fair. A drop of hot water trickles into your ear. You tilt your head and blow gently out your nose like you saw a yogi do once in a video. The bath attendant sees this and nods approvingly. Good, he says. You know breath. Apparently, you've passed a minor test. Historians still argue whether ancient palace baths were more about purification or politics. After all, who you bathed with, who poured your water, and even who watched you bathe, could signal your standing. In court. In your case, the court consists of 2 elephants, one teenager with a bucket, and a man who thinks scrubbing should qualify as a martial art. You close your eyes and lean back. The stone cradles your spine. The sounds of sloshing water, snorting elephants, and distant bells blend into something that could almost be described as peaceful. Until the next ritual begins. You're handed a flat stone bowl filled with crushed green leaves and what looks suspiciously like a chili pepper. For spirit fire, says the attendant. You raise an eyebrow. For whose spirit, he doesn't answer. Just gestures for you to scoop the paste and smear it on your chest. You hesitate, then obey. It's cool at first, minty, fresh, then it hits. A gentle burn, then a tingle, then a roaring heat that spreads across your chest like your skin is trying to give a TED talk on bad decisions. You hiss. The attendant grins. First, time. Spirit fire come, he says with the satisfaction of a man who loves his job just a little too much. You try to focus on the cool water around you. It helps. Sort of. Not really. A monkey appears on the ledge outside the bath chamber, peers in, sees your suffering, and promptly loses interest. Even the wildlife here seems unimpressed by your struggles. You endure. The heat fades, slowly. You suspect your spirit is now thoroughly S-A-U-T. E-acute, ed, den, comes the final surprise of the room. Your water begins to drain, not through modern pipes, but via tiny holes in the corners of the tub that lead to who knows where. You hear the trickle of your bath spiraling into darkness beneath the palace, possibly into a garden, possibly into a dungeon, possibly into another guest's surprise foot bath. You rise, dripping and flushed, your limbs heavy with heat and ceremony. The bath attendant drapes a thick cotton wrap over your shoulders. It's rough, it smells like lime leaves and old stone. You cling to it like a prize. He points to another corridor. Rest now, he says, but you know better. There is no rest. Only the next room. You shuffle forward, cocooned in your slightly scratchy cotton wrap, still steaming like a dumpling left too long in the basket. The corridor ahead opens slowly, revealing a warm yellow glow and the sound of rhythmic slapping. You stop. That's not a metaphor. The slapping gets louder, rhythmic, wet, followed by a chant, a laugh, a grunt. You round the corner and find yourself in a low-ceilinged room, lit by swinging brass lamps and scented with sandalwood, turmeric, and something vaguely citrusy. A small fire crackles at the center, and beside it sits a man grinding roots into paste with alarming commitment. Another is stirring a pot of thick, golden goo. A third man, your new handler, apparently stands up, claps his hands once, and says brightly, "Time for scrub paste." You blink. "We already did paste," he grins. "This one's stronger." For glow. That's how you know you're in danger. You're guided toward a stone slab that looks less like a spa bench and more like a mortuary table. You lie back cautiously, the cotton wrap now reduced to a strategically draped strip of surrender. The man dips both hands into the golden mixture. It looks like a cross between mashed bananas and radioactive pollen. He slathers it on your chest. It's cool, which is nice. Then he adds more, and more. By the time he's done, you look like a cake someone gave up decorating halfway through. The smell is complex. Hints of cardamom, dried orange peel, crushed neem leaves, and what you really hope is not fermented yak butter as he begins to rub it in. Using both palms in slow, wide circles, you realize this is a full-body treatment. A very thorough one. You try to stay relaxed, but he's now working the paste behind your ears with a finger that seems suspiciously pointy. It tickles, it also burns. You are officially 30% scrub paste. And then he reaches your arms. He begins to sing softly as he massages something in an old dialect, repeating syllables over and over. The cadence is oddly hypnotic. You're lulled. You breathe. You begin to drift. He smacks your shoulder. Not hard. Not violently. Just with enough force to jolt you back to the waking world. Must keep energy moving, he says cheerfully. Apparently. Being relaxed is not the point here. Historians still debate. Whether this part of the bathing process had spiritual significance or was simply dermatological enthusiasm, ancient Ayurvedic texts suggest that vigorous application of herbal mixtures helped awaken the inner fire. You think your fire was already awake? Thank you. It's currently screaming. You glance to the side and spot another bowl filled with something black and crumbly. Charcoal and sesame, the man explains, for polish. He begins to dust it over your legs and arms like he's seasoning a holiday roast. You try to remain dignified. You fail. Your face is next. He applies a cooling layer of what he calls sandal milk. It drips into your nostrils. You sneeze. A monkey outside the window sneezes back in solidarity. The massage intensifies. Circular motions, firm pressure, occasional slaps. You suspect this is more of a ritual beating than a relaxation technique. Somewhere deep inside, your muscles are giving up and giving in. You start to feel limp, squishy, accepting. Very good, the man mutters. Skin will glow like moon. You suspect your skin will glow like a cautionary tale. The attendant pauses to let the paste settle. You're now lying there, sticky and motionless, as if waiting to be baked in the palace kiln. A young girl enters quietly and places thin slices of cucumber over your eyes. You're not sure if this is for your benefit or just symbolic. Then she carefully drapes a wet cloth over your forehead and whispers, "Rest." You try, but the chanting in the next room grows louder. And now there's drumming, and someone is pouring water somewhere with real commitment. Still, for a moment, you do relax. The scent of sandalwood thickens in the warm air. A soft wind passes through the carved windows. You hear birds in the courtyard, a distant conch call, a cow chewing something rhythmically outside. This palace, you realize, is a place where time slows down, not because it's peaceful, but because everything takes 4 times longer than you expect. And most of that time involves being rubbed, steamed, or pounded with something sacred. Eventually, the paste is wiped away with cloths soaked in lukewarm rose water. Each stroke is oddly soothing, like being unwrapped from an ancient mistake. You're handed a cup of hot liquid. This time it's jaggery tea. Sweet, spiced, deeply earthy. You sip. You sigh. Then, just as you begin to believe you might finally dry off and be left alone, the man leans in with a final flourish. He dips his thumb in bright yellow powdered turmeric again and dots your forehead. For protection, he says. You nod. From what? He only smiles. You're not reassured. He claps his hands again. 2 other attendants arrive with large fans made of peacock feathers and begin slowly waving them back and forth. It's not effective, but it's elegant. You sit. Up. You are still damp, but radiant in a way that's difficult to define. Your skin hums, your hair drips, your soul feels exfoliated. Now, the attendant says, you meet steam. You sigh. Of course you do. You follow the scent of eucalyptus and old stone deeper into the palace. At this point, you're gliding more than walking, coated in a dozen layers of paste, powder, and possibly your own confusion. Every step squelches slightly. Your bath attendant walks ahead without turning back, his feet soundless on the smooth tiles. The walls grow closer, the air thicker. The sound of your own breath becomes the loudest thing in the corridor until you start to hear it. A deep, slow hiss. Steam. Not. The gentle kind that wafts from a tea kettle. This is the kind that rises like a ghost army, warm and dense and almost alive. You round the corner and arrive at the doorway, carved teak with metal hinges the size of dinner plates. The door creaks open on its own, and the steam hits you like a damp slap from an affectionate fog. You're here, the Palace Swidana Griha, the sweating room dot inside. The room is low, rounded, and tiled with polished black stone. The ceiling curves into a perfect dome, trapping heat like an ancient pressure cooker. Embedded in the walls are tiny niches, each holding flickering oil lamps. You count at least 12 before your vision begins to blur from the humidity. Air is so thick it feels like you're inhaling soup, spicy soup, with extra ginger. A large copper urn sits in the center, glowing faintly with coals beneath it. Eucalyptus leaves float inside, bubbling lazily. There's no bench, no towel, no music. Just a single flat stone slab hot to the touch, and a thin reed mat draped over it. The attendant gestures for you to lie down. You hesitate, then comply, settling onto the slab like a sacrifice that got lost on its way to a better ceremony. The stone radiates heat through your back instantly. Your lungs heave a little in protest. You're about 3 breaths away from becoming stew. He sprinkles more eucalyptus into the urn. Then, from a hidden spout near the wall, he releases another surge of steam into the room. It howls softly, swirling around you like a damp genie. And then the door shuts completely. No breeze. No escape. Just heat. Lots of it. You're officially a dumpling. Historians still argue whether ancient Indian steam chambers like this were more about detoxing the body or purging the soul. The Ayurvedic texts reference the practice of Swidana-inducing sweat to balance the 3 dashas. You have no idea what your dashas are doing right now, but they're definitely sweating. You shift slightly, trying to avoid frying your shoulder blades. Your forehead drips. Your neck is slick. Even your knees are sweating your knees. You didn't even know they could. The attendant remains inside the room, standing in the corner like a polite ghost. Every so often, he murmurs something and tosses more herbs into the cauldron. Occasionally, he lifts a reed fan and wafts it toward you with the enthusiasm of someone fanning a goat at one point. He comes over with a cloth dipped in cold water and gently places it over your chest. For 10 blessed seconds, you know, peace. Then he says more and opens another vent. The steam hisses again, rising around you like a judgmental cloud. You feel your pores scream and your thoughts slow to a sleepy crawl. You are now less human and more broth. Outside the chamber, someone is chanting softly, a rhythm of syllables like falling water. You let the sound guide your mind. The walls blur. Time melts, then something unexpected happens. You start to enjoy it. Your muscles, stiff from awkward bath poses and ceremonial slapping, begin to soften. Your breath slows. The heat no longer feels like punishment. It begins to feel like floating. You've surrendered to it. There is no dryness, no ego, no time. Only sweat and steam and breath. You are a dumpling. And you're okay with that from the corner. Your bath attendant speaks. This is the softening, he says, as if narrating a nature documentary. He places a drop of oil on your forehead. It sizzles slightly. You don't even flinch. You almost ready, he says. You groan not from discomfort, but from the weight of that word. Almost. The door creaks open just a bit, and a cool breeze ghosts through. It feels like heaven. You sit up slowly, skin glowing, body glistening, joints loose as overcooked noodles. You stand. Or try to. Your knees argue. Your balance protests. The attendant offers a hand calloused, warm and weirdly reassuring. You take it. Wrapped once more in your slightly damp cotton wrap, you exit the chamber and step into the open air of a side courtyard. The breeze kisses your skin. Your body steams in the morning light like a fresh plate of idly. A tray is waiting. For you, 2 copper cups, one with honey water, one with salty lemon tea. You drink both. One tastes like sunshine, the other like electrolyte panic. A fringe historian once claimed these post-steam courtyard breaks were used to induce visions from spiritual unlocking. You don't see visions, but you do briefly hallucinate the idea of air conditioning. And start crying. You sit beneath a palm tree, dripping and dazed. A pigeon lands beside you. It seems calm. You envy it. But there's no time to bond with birds, because from the far side of the courtyard, you hear the next phrase you've come to dread now ... massage. And once again, you rise. You're slippery. You're soft. You're doomed. You wobble forward like a freshly kneaded doughboy, your wrap clinging in strange places. Your hair frizzed into something between forest druid and electrocuted coconut. The breeze helps, kind of. You feel like a cake cooling after the bake. Your bath attendant is already halfway across the courtyard, his pace steady, unbothered. You do your best to keep up, feet slapping the warm stone in a slow, soggy rhythm. Then you smell it. Smoke, yes, but sweet, layered with spices. Cinnamon, frankincense, roasted something. 1,000 tiny memories of winter holidays and temple incense light up in your brain. Then comes a second scent less festive, strong, metallic, a little swampy. You turn the corner and stop. Before you stands a large copper vessel, shaped like a teardrop and mounted on a wooden frame. Beneath it a small fire crackles, heating. The pot's contents an oily brew that looks like someone melted down a forest. Nearby, bundles of herbs hang from ceiling hooks, drying in the sun. Everything gleams with oil, smoke, and centuries of repetition. And in the middle of the room, a low wooden table lined with straw, mats and stained with the ghosts of 1,000 past massages. You are not ready. Lie down, your new massage master says. He is older, with arms like tree trunks and a mustache that looks like it once served in the military. His voice is gentle, but not optional. You lie down. The wood beneath you creaks softly. Then you hear it the unmistakable glug-glug of oil, being poured. Not a few drops, not a polite drizzle, but cups. Cups and cups of oil. It's warm, fragrant, and now cascading down your spine, like you've just been blessed by the god of lubrication. Then it begins. The man places his hands on your back and starts to push, slowly, firmly, in long, deliberate strokes that go from your shoulders to your lower back and back up again. He's not kneading, he's rearranging. Every muscle in your body rises in protest, then sighs. And then comes the slap. Not painful, not angry, just enough of a rhythmic smack to remind your body who's in charge. He works methodically, one limb at a time, like an artisan reshaping clay. Your calves are pressed, rolled, and stretched. Your arms are twisted gently into configurations you're pretty sure only yogis and seaweed can achieve. You try to relax. Then he digs into the space between your shoulder blades with his thumbs and uncovers a knot that may date back to your teenage years. You yelp. He chuckles. Ah, he says, Western shoulders always locked. You feel seen. You feel exposed. You feel like maybe this man is performing emotional therapy through your scapulae dot at one point. He lifts your leg into the air, rotates your ankle 3 times, then drops it like a sack of rice. Balanced now, he declares. Sure, historians still argue whether these royal oil massages were performed daily or only during festivals and rituals. Some say they were luxury. Others argue they were survival a way to combat muscle pain from sleeping on stone and walking barefoot through jungles. Either way, you're not debating. You're submitting. Midway through, he begins massaging your face. This is new. He taps your cheeks, pulls gently at your ears, and presses 2 fingers between your eyebrows. You think too much. He mutters. You don't argue. Then comes the scalp. He tips another warm handful of oil over your head and begins what can only be described as enthusiastic scrubbing. Your skull is now a sponge. The room fills with the scent of coconut, tulsi, and something vaguely peppery. You feel both slippery and strangely invincible, like a salad blessed by monks. A pigeon outside the window coos softly. Somewhere in the palace, someone is still chanting. You think you hear your own name whispered by your kidneys dot, and just when you think it's over, just when your body has turned to butter and your soul has filed for early retirement, he flips. You are now staring at a ceiling covered in tiny lotus carvings. He begins again. This time, the strokes are gentler, slower. He rubs your forehead in little spirals, whispers something in Sanskrit, and places a warm cloth over your chest. Now the heart is quiet. He says, it is. For a blissful few minutes, you forget you're in a centuries-old palace being tenderized like a piece of sacred meat. You just float. A fringe theory suggests that oil massage in royal India wasn't just physical, it was spiritual cleansing, a way of wiping the soul clean while softening the body. You don't know if that's true, but if someone asked you your name, right now you'd hesitate. At last, the man leans close. Finished. He helps you sit up. Your hair clings to your face. Your skin glows. You are now quite possibly 60% sesame oil. You're handed another hot cloth. You pat your face. You pat your pride, then he offers you a towel coarse, old, and covered in small curls of what you hope is cotton dot. You dry off as best you can. You're guided toward a side door, barefoot and gleaming, and that's when you step out into a cloud of smoke and pigeons. So many pigeons. You're blinded for a moment. The world has shifted from oily twilight to full-on smoky chaos. The door slams shut behind you with a thud that feels strangely personal. You blink furiously as the smoke swirls around you, white, fragrant, and oddly minty, like someone lit 1,000 herbal cough drops on fire at once. As the haze clears, you realize you're in yet another courtyard. This one is smaller, enclosed on 3 sides by carved lattice walls, with hanging garlands of jasmine and marigold strung overhead like party decorations for a celebration you definitely weren't invited to. and then you hear it. The flutter. 1, 2, 20. A whoosh above your head. Feathers flapping. And is that cooing and surround sound? Yes, it is dozens of pigeons. They're perched in neat little rows along the ledges, flapping casually and watching you with the same expression your high school gym teacher used right before telling you to climb the rope. The courtyard smells like incense, rosewater, and unfortunately, pigeon. You step forward. Bad move. A feather floats down and lands on your oiled shoulder. You look up and make eye contact with a bird that definitely just adjusted its aim. Before you can flee, a new figure appears. A woman, draped in bright silk, balancing a copper tray filled with small clay pots. She smiles serenely. Too serenely. For perfume, she says. You nod. She nods. She dips a tiny spoon into the first pot and flicks something at your neck. Cold, wet, overwhelmingly floral. Before you can recover, she moves on your wrists, behind your ears, your collarbones. Lavender, jasmine, something sharp and spicy. Something that smells like powdered royalty and costs more than your shoes. You open your mouth to say something, and she sprays you. Directly right in the face. ROCWATER. Your sinus is clear instantly. Your eyes, not so much. She steps back, admires. Her work then gestures to a small bench at the side of the courtyard. Sit, she says. You obey. An attendant arrives with what might be tea or possibly another potion. It smells like basil and anise. You sip it carefully. It tastes like black licorice and soap, but you pretend to enjoy it. The pigeons remain unimpressed. Then comes the towel. It's placed gently on your lap. You unfold it and pause. It's fuzzy. Too fuzzy. And then you see it, embedded in the cloth, tiny curled hairs. Not human, not quite wool. The woman beams. Goat, very soft. You look down at your lap, now covered in what feels like lovingly sheared goat fluff. You're drying your sacred sesame-oiled self with recycled barnyard fashion. You wipe your she-core. Arms. You sparkle faintly in the sun. You sneeze. Pigeon sneezes. You both freeze. The attendant returns with a tiny bowl of clay powder and a brush. Without asking, she begins to dust your feet. Not clean them, dust them. With pale powder that smells like dried petals and something vaguely medicinal. You try not to laugh. It tickles. This is for calmness, she says, and to prevent slippery accident. You nod solemnly, because at this point every ritual feels like a trap laid by someone very determined to keep you from relaxing for too long. Historians still argue whether such perfuming ceremonies were everyday occurrences or reserved for guests of status. Either way, your nostrils are now clogged with 12 types of floral ambition, and your toes smell like a temple garden. Then, without warning, the pigeons take flight. All of them at once. The sky above erupts into flapping chaos. You duck instinctively. A feather lands on your head, then a second, then plop. You don't want to look. The woman gasps, not at the mess, but at the location. Direct hit, your shoulder. Warm, fresh, ominously symmetrical. The woman covers her mouth, clearly unsure if this is a sign of divine blessing or catastrophic disrespect. You look at her. She looks at you. The birds settle again. She dabs your shoulder with a lemon-scented cloth, muttering something in Sanskrit that sounds suspiciously like an apology to a pigeon god. Then she hands you a different cloth wrap. This one is saffron-colored, embroidered, with little golden fish. You're not sure what it means, but it feels ceremonial. Possibly like they're preparing you to be sacrificed to a river. You change behind a screen, wincing at the sound of pigeon laughter. When you step out, the courtyard is suddenly calm again. The attendants are gone. Even the birds seem quieter. You stand alone for a moment, wrapped in silk, skin polished and perfumed, soul somewhere in a hammock far behind your eyes. And just as you're about to sit down, maybe even enjoy a moment of nothingness, a gong rings in the distance. Your head snaps up. The Raja's entourage has arrived early, and you, your guests, are very much not supposed to be here. The gong rings again, louder this time. Longer, it vibrates in your bones. A hush settles over the courtyard, if one can call a courtyard, inhabited by 40 pigeons, and the lingering stench of rosewater, hush-worthy, the air shifts. You feel it, that eerie, unmistakable tension that tells you someone important is approaching, and that you are both underdressed and extremely in the way. The woman who'd been dabbing pigeon debris from your shoulder freezes mid-fold with a towel in hand. Her eyes dart to the far archway. She mutters one word under her breath, Samrat, and vanishes behind a curtain with the speed of someone fleeing a tax audit. You're alone now, wrapped in the fish-embroidered cloth, sparkling faintly, hair plastered to your forehead in fragrant chaos. You look like a half-baked religious offering. Then the drums start, not aggressive, not warlike, just steady, purposeful. Footsteps. Chanting. More footsteps. And just like that, the royal bathing order arrives. First, through the archway, come the attendants, 6 of them barefoot, heads shaved, robes perfectly creased, carrying copper jugs and folded towels embroidered with actual gold thread. Following them are the priests, faces painted with ash and sandalwood, whispering prayers as they scatter petals with exact choreography. Then come the guards, spears, turbans, serious expressions, and behind them, the Raja. Or at least someone far too important for you to be caught loitering in what might be his private pre-bath sanctuary. He's younger than you expected, broad-shouldered, draped in ivory silk and rubies, with the look of someone who knows he'll never have to carry his own sandals again. He walks slowly, as though gravity itself makes way for him. His gaze is distant until it lands on you, a flicker of confusion, mild surprise, mildly amused surprise. You nod politely, unsure what the protocol is for accidentally trespassing on royal exfoliation hour. He raises one eyebrow. An advisor behind him clears his throat and leans in to whisper. The Raja nods slowly. You take a slow, cautious step backward, then another. The flower petals on the stone floor betray you. Your heel slips just slightly, and you stagger sideways into one of the golden towel baskets. It topples in slow motion. Towels spill. A brass bowl clinks dramatically. The nearest guard flinches toward you. You throw up both hands, as if to say, it's fine, I'm just leaving forever. Historians still argue how rigid palace protocol was when it came to bathing. Rituals, Some claim intruding on the royal bath was a punishable offense. Others believe nobles often tolerated eccentric guests as a form of courtly amusement. You're desperately hoping for the second version. The Raja speaks. His voice is smooth, low, and disturbingly calm. You don't understand the language, but the tone is unmistakable. Who is this shiny, awkward person blocking my spiritual cleansing? An elderly man appears at your side, suddenly, like a shadow summoned by your regret. It's your original bath attendant. Somehow, impossibly, he's still bone-dry and composed. He bows deeply to the Raja and mutters something. Then he turns to you and hisses, "You leave. Now." You nod. Emphatically, he guides you not gently toward a side door. You trip over a small pile of flower petals. A pigeon flaps upward in panic. Somewhere in the distance, a cow moves in. What sounds like disappointment. You escape through the doorway just as the priests begin chanting again, and the copper jugs are raised. The air behind you fills with sacred steam and royal calm. The air in front of you? Panic. You're now in a hallway you've never seen before. Narrow, damp, smelling faintly of clay and common. There are no attendants here, no pigeons, just silence and one small candle flickering next to an open door. Your bath attendant turns to you, less angry now. You walk quiet. We go fast. You do as you're told. Your wet sandals slap lightly against the stone. Every time your foot makes a sound, you wince. Every distant echo sounds like someone about to yell your name, which is wild, considering no one here even knows it. You round a corner, another, then another. The palace feels endless. The walls close in, and still you walk, guided only by flickering lamps and the unwavering back of a man who's seen too many naked guests in the wrong courtyard. You pass by an open door where two monks are meditating in absolute stillness. One opens one eye and stares at you, expression blank. You nod. He closes his eye again, likely adding you to the list of things he must detach from. Another turn, another faint breeze. A single rat dashes past, trailing what might be ribbon. You are so very done, but you are not free yet. Not quite. You duck under a low lintel, breath catching slightly as your forehead almost brushes the stone. The hallway opens barely into another small chamber. You stop, momentarily confused. It's dim, spare, surprisingly quiet. A flickering lantern hangs on a chain. The scent of sesame oil lingers, but fainter now. And yet, something feels off. Your bath attendant turns to you, finally pausing, his expression unreadable. He gestures toward a narrow cot, lined with rough cotton cloth. You raise an eyebrow. He nods. You lie. You glance behind you. No guards, no chanting, no Raja, with a glint of amusement in his eye. Just you, the attendant, in a room that looks like it hasn't been used since the Gupta Empire. You lie down, uncertain, clutching your wrap like a blanket of courage. He retrieves a small brass bowl from a niche in the wall and lights a candle. Beneath it, as the wax melts or oil, you think it begins to bubble, releasing an aroma of fenugreek and something suspiciously like nutmeg. Last massage, he says. Small one for energy. You sigh? Sure. What could possibly go wrong? He dips his hands in the warm oil and begins with your feet. Not in a comforting reflexology kind of way, more like he's trying to coax ancient secrets from your heels. Then he moves to your ankles, your shins. Your knees. Each movement deliberate, slow. But here's the twist occasionally, unpredictably, punctuated by a light slap. You flinch the first time. The second time you just exhale sharply. By the fifth, you've accepted it as part of the process, like punctuation or a medieval footnote. He hums while he works, a low, tuneless sound that's both soothing and deeply unnerving. You try to follow the rhythm, you fail. It's like trying to hum along with your taxes. Then he moves to your hands. One at a time, he stretches each finger with a loud crack. You're not sure if it's supposed to happen, but he seems pleased. He presses your palm. You gasp. Blocked energy. He mutters. He presses again. You gasp louder. Still blocked. You consider asking what exactly is blocking your energy. Mercury in retrograde? Too much turmeric? The fact that you haven't eaten in 6 hours and your last interaction with food was sipping floral, pigeon-scented tea? But instead you stay quiet and let him continue. He moves to your neck next, pressing along the sides with just enough pressure to make your vision twinkle. Not pass out twinkle, just a friendly sparkle of wow, that's probably where my stress lives. And then he touches your temples. Instant silence. No drums. No footsteps. Pigeons. Just the gentle circular motion of two well-oiled thumbs and the faint crackle of the oil lamp beside you. You feel yourself melting. Again, you've melted. 12 times already, but this one is different. This one feels internal. Historians still debate whether palace massages were part of everyday hygiene or reserved for royal rituals like births, weddings, or preparing for war. One obscure text even claims soldiers were oiled and massaged before battle so their enemies couldn't grab them easily. You now understand. You are deeply ungrabbable. Your skin is a polished slip hazard. You are the embodiment of moisturized and unbothered. Then, because of course then he reaches for another bowl. This one is smaller. The contents, glowing orange, paced with flecks of gold leaf. You stare. He dips 2 fingers in, then dabs a small dot onto the center of your forehead. Blessing, he says. It's warm, lightly spicy, fragrantly weird. Then, with the same fingers, he dabs 1 dot on each of your shoulders, another on each wrist. Now you look like a very confused constellation. He steps back, surveys you like a potter admiring a wobbly vase, and nods. You finish. You blink. Done? He nods again, slower this time, as if letting the finality settle in. You sit up carefully, joints creaking like temple doors. Your wrap, once vibrant, now clings to you with the loyalty of a wet sock. You are shiny, aromatic, and somehow both exhausted, and vibrating with energy. The attendant reaches into a clay jar and pulls out something small, a smooth piece of white stone. For cool, he says, handing it to you. It's chilled. You place it against your cheek. Sweet relief. Then he does something truly unexpected. He smiles, just briefly, but it's real. He pats your shoulder, thankfully without slapping, and motions toward the corridor behind him. You nod your thanks, stand, and step forward. The oil on your soles squeaks faintly. You're beginning to think it might actually be over, until you hear laughter. Soft, musical, Unmistakable. You turn a corner and walk straight into a mirror hall, and that's when everything unravels. You weren't expecting a hall of mirrors. You certainly weren't prepared for this many. They shimmer before you, hundreds of polished surfaces lining the arched hallway like a never-ending funhouse, curated by someone who thinks self-reflection should be a religious experience. Tiny mirrors embedded in plaster. Large, warped panels framed in gold. Every few feet, another angle, another flicker of your oily, dazed reflection. You step in cautiously, and your own image steps with you times 50. And then you see it. Yourself. All of yourself. In brilliant, humiliating, panoramic detail. From one angle. You look sun-kissed and mysterious, like you just returned from an Ayurvedic retreat in the Himalayas. From another, you look like a half-drowned candle. There's turmeric on your shoulder. Your hair is standing at angles previously unseen in nature. And your wrap? Crooked, inside out, decorated with a few fresh pigeon footprints. You pause and turn, catching a glimpse of the back of your head. Oh, a small petal is stuck behind your ear, and what you thought was ceremonial ash may in fact be soot from the steam vent. You stare at yourself for a moment longer, feeling less like royalty and more like a deep-fried monk. And yet, there's something oddly poetic about it. You're glowing, literally. The oil on your skin reflects the torchlight like you've been lacquered for display. Your face, flushed and dazed, holds the unmistakable look of someone who's seen things. And just as you're about to gather yourself and step forward with dignity, you hear it again, that soft, lilting laughter. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just. Amused. You spin toward the source. Two young women stand in the corner of the mirror hall, partially concealed behind a silk curtain. Their heads are covered with scarves, their eyes wide with mischief. One holds a fan, the other a silver tray of scented powder. Both are clearly attendants. Both are clearly watching you. You consider saying something clever, something charming. But instead you sneeze. The echo is deafening. The women vanish behind the curtain in a blur of jingling anklets and muffled giggles. A pigeon coos somewhere above you as if to punctuate the moment. You sigh and press onward. Halfway down the mirror hall, the mirrors shift from full body to face height, forming a kind of tunnel of glimmering gazes. You're forced to look yourself in the eye again, and again. Each step forward, another version of you blinking back. Historians still debate the purpose of such halls in Indian palaces. Were they built for vanity? For light reflection? For intimidating court visitors into polishing their posture? One theory claims these mirrored corridors symbolize the many facets of the soul, a literal house of introspection. Another, more fringe idea? They were designed so the royal guards could monitor your every move without being seen. You feel both interpretations happening simultaneously. Then, just as you begin to feel existential, a door opens at the far end, and out steps a royal attendant. Not yours, a new one. Tall, silent, extremely unimpressed. He looks you up and down. His expression doesn't change. He simply steps aside and gestures toward a new room. You peek past him. It's beautiful. Bright. Cushions. Low marble benches. Bowls of fruit. A soft wind drifting through sheer curtains. A room made for lounging, resting, maybe finally being horizontal. without someone scrubbing you. You take a hopeful step forward, but the attendant raises a hand. Royal resting chamber. He says, not for you. You freeze. He gestures the other way. You follow his gaze to a small archway, much smaller, with dimmer light and a distinct lack of cushions. Of course. You nod. You shuffle. You enter. The floor is plain stone. The air cooler now. A towel is draped over a stool. You sit, and that's when you hear it. The distant sound of conch horns. Again. Your heart sinks. And sure enough, footsteps. The royal bathing party is on the move. You are once again in the path of people with titles and opinions and servants who spray rosewater before they enter rooms. You look around. No escape. But then your bath attendant appears, again, out of nowhere. At this point, you suspect he teleports. He doesn't speak. He just gestures. You follow him through a side passage, narrow and curved, and find yourself in a quiet alcove, tucked behind a set of decorative screens. He hands you a mango slice. You accept. It is, without question, the best mango you have ever eaten in your life. Sweet, cool, slightly tangy, possibly sent by the gods. You chew in silence as voices echo faintly from the corridor you just escaped. You hear the Rajah's laugh, the soft clink of metal cups, a splash of water. You realize with some horror that you almost ended up face to face with him again in your current disheveled state. The mango makes it better, but only slightly. You close your eyes, you breathe, and you brace yourself because the next room awaits, and you still haven't dried off properly. You emerge from the alcove feeling like someone who's narrowly avoided being trampled by a royal entourage, accidentally reenacted half a religious ritual, and now carries the vague stickiness of mango juice as both shame and armor. The bath attendant, ever calm, leads you down a sloping corridor lined with faded murals. One shows a tiger bathing in a lotus pond. Another depicts a royal couple being fanned by servants as garlands rain from above. You, by contrast, are a walking oil slick wrapped in wrinkled fish-embroidered cloth, limping slightly from one particularly aggressive foot massage. You begin to wonder how much palace life was ceremonial and how much of it was, quite frankly, performance. A very slippery performance. Then you arrive. The changing chamber. It's quiet here, eerily so. The thick sandstone walls muffle all outside sound. The light is soft and golden, pouring through a carved lattice window, falling across cushions, low stools, and a set of dry clothes, not yours. Certainly not modern. But clean, pressed, and mercifully free of bird evidence. You glance at the attendant. He nods. Change now, he says, as if you haven't already changed emotionally, spiritually, and molecular. Why? He draws a silk screen across the room with a whispery check. You're alone. You remove the wrap, which audibly peels off your skin, and toss it in a nearby basket. It lands with a wet plop that echoes more than you'd like. The fresh garments are light, a dhoti with embroidery at the edges, and a soft, wide scarf meant to drape over one shoulder. You try to copy the style you've seen on the attendant's graceful, crisp folds, the air of someone born to wear fabric that floats. Instead, you resemble a toga-wearing ghost who got tangled in a curtain. You emerge from behind the screen. Cautiously. The attendant doesn't react. Either you've nailed the look or he's completely numb to wardrobe disasters. He nods again. Now you rest. A moment only. Then we go. A small cushioned bench waits beneath the window. You sit. It's the first thing today that hasn't demanded anything of you. No slapping, no scalding, no philosophical footwork, just sitting. The sunlight warms your knees. A breeze ruffles your scarf gently. You close your eyes and breathe, and then you hear it dot footsteps, dot again, dot you. Freeze. They're coming from the far end of the hall, closer now. Heavy, rhythmic, accompanied by the faint jingle of ankle bells. The attendant perks up, sniffs the air, and utters the phrase you've come to dread more than any other. Move now. You blink. But no time. He grabs your arm, oily elbow and all, and yanks you upright. You stumble slightly, adjusting your grip on the draped scarf that insists on turning into a rope. You're shoved politely, but with urgency, through a narrow door hidden behind a tapestry depicting Shiva riding a bull. You barely register the imagery. You're too busy trying to keep the dhoti from unraveling. The space beyond the door is low, dusty, and blessedly empty. A storage corridor. No mirrors. No pigeons. No attendants with surprise powder bowls. You exhale, and then a noise, a whisper, a giggle. You whip around. There, in the corner, an elderly woman crouching on a stool, wrapping flower garlands around a bamboo tray. She looks up, eyes twinkling, and says, "You missed your offering ceremony." You stare at her. "My what?" She waves a hand. "Never mind. You're late for everything today." She gestures toward another passage. That way, before they find you again. You don't ask who they are. You just move. You push through a heavy curtain and emerge into yet another courtyard. This one is smaller, half-shaded. Its floor painted with faded rangoli patterns and scattered with broken flower petals and spent. Incense sticks and at the center, a basin. Not just any basin. Footbath. A tiny decorative pool lined with polished pebbles and floating slices of citrus and rose petals. It's probably meant for dignitaries arriving to cleanse before ritual, or for royalty to refresh before their final procession. You don't care. You step in. The water is cool, clean, slightly fizzy. You sigh audibly, feeling your toes uncoil, and your ankles breathe for the first time since this all began. Historians still argue whether these foot baths were symbolic or genuinely hygienic. You are firmly team hygiene. Your feet have seen too much as you soak. A breeze picks up, tugging the corner of your scarf again. You tighten the knot. You've learned your lesson. Then, as the last drops trickle from your toes and the rose petals gather around your ankles like a floral conspiracy, you hear it. Where did the guest go? The voice is nearby. Too nearby. You panic. No attendants in sight. No back door. Just one low archway near the ground, half covered in vines and just wide enough for someone your size if they ducked a little. You glance at it. You glance behind you. You run, sort of. You scramble, knees cracking, dhoti flapping, scarf flailing, straight into the tiny arch. And there, for the briefest moment, you realize you are crawling through a palace wearing a sacred outfit, soaked in 6 kinds of oil, with mango on your chin, into what looks suspiciously like a drainage tunnel. This is your life now, and the tunnel It smells promising dot of earth, of damp stone, dot of freedom. You shuffle through the low tunnel, knees damp, head bowed, your dignity now somewhere between questionable and compost. The vine-covered entrance behind you grows smaller with every step, and the light ahead faint, flickering. Possibly imaginary becomes your new obsession. You've been blessed, scrubbed, slapped, oiled, steamed, pigeon-bombed, scented, and spiritually questioned. And now, like some deeply confused mythical creature, you're crawling through the underbelly of an Indian palace, hoping not to run into a royal foot. The air grows cooler here. Moisture, the scent of jasmine and turmeric fades, replaced by damp. Stone, old water, and something suspiciously like cinnamon that's been left in the sun too long. The tunnel opens gradually, thank the mango gods, and you straighten up slightly. You're now walking hunched, like a villain sneaking through a banquet in a badly written folk tale. The only sound is your wet sandals squeaking softly, and the occasional drip of water. Echoing through the dark, you pass a cluster of clay pots, empty, cracked, stacked like ancient Lego bricks. A cat darts past and disappears into a walled dot, then dash voices close. You freeze. Male voices, authoritative. One of them mentions the guest. Another says the Raja will not wait long. Your heart thuds. You flatten yourself against the wall like a very shiny lizard and pray they're not the kind of guards who check drainage tunnels. The footsteps grow louder, then fainter, then silence. You exhale only for the ceiling to drop a single cold drop of water directly onto the bridge of your nose. You do not scream. You door consider your life choices. The tunnel finally spits you out into a back corridor lined with shelves of old baskets, half-burnt incense, and what might be ceremonial spoons. You dart through, making the universal sound of someone trying to tiptoe in squishy footwear. SHFF chef dot. And just as you think the coast is clear, clatter your shoulder clips a brass bowl balanced precariously on a windowsill. It crashes to the floor with the subtlety of a THUNDARPLAP. You wince. From around the corner, an acolyte appears, barefoot, bearded, holding a tray of flower petals. He locks eyes with you. You freeze. He tilts his head. Then unexpectedly, he nods, steps aside, and mutters, "I won't tell if you don't." You mouth, "Thank you," with the solemnity of a secret pact forged under duress. You move on down another hall, through another veil, past a suspiciously quiet fountain. A peacock squawks nearby. You don't even flinch. Then dash another courtyard. You recognize this one, vaguely, the first place they brought you, with the lion head fountains, the black stone basin, the monkey with the judgmental eyes. He's still there, by the way, sitting in the same place, same expression, watching. You give him a nod. He does not return it. Your bath attendant appears again, out of nowhere. Of course, he eyes you winded, slightly unwrapped, a bit flower petal encrusted. He sighs. A deep, disappointed sigh. "You go wrong way," he says. You nod solemnly. "Yes, I'm aware." He squints. "Why are you so fast?" "Raja," you say. "Drums, pigeons, long story." He gestures. "Follow me." And you do, because at this point you trust him more than your own instincts. He leads you behind a curtain, through a cracked arch, and into a storage space filled with sacks of herbs and one very confused goat. The goat bleats. The bath attendant ignores it. A narrow stone staircase spirals downward. He starts descending. You hesitate. We're going down? Yes, he says, down is out. You do not ask questions that the steps are slick, cool, echoey. The air grows wetter, denser. You pass torch brackets with no torches, a broken sandal, a spider the size of a coin dot at the bottom, a carved wooden door. He opens it with a grunt and reveals a tunnel dot again, dot this one's different, wider, breezier. You hear the faintest sound of wind. Outside, winged dot you move faster now, dot around a bend, past another pile of ceremonial laundry, through a final arch dot, and then you're there. A narrow exit, half covered in ivy, sunlight beyond it. Real, honest, unscented sunlight. You turn to your bath attendant, he simply nods. This is end. You nod back, throat tight. Then, unexpectedly, he pulls a small pouch from his sash and presses it into your hand. For protection, he says. You peek inside dried basil, turmeric, a coin, a blessing kit. A goodbye in herb form dot you step through. The ivy and out into the sunlight. The path leads to a rocky trail lined with neem trees and, mercifully, no witnesses. Behind you, the palace looms grand, glimmering, full of mystery and possibly still echoing with unanswered questions about where exactly their honored guest disappeared to. You breathe deeply dot and begin to walk. Your feet are damp, your dhoti is wrinkled. You smell like sandalwood and trauma, but you are free for now. You follow the rocky trail for a while, uncertain whether you're heading towards safety or simply into a new kind of confusion. But for the first time all day, there's no ceremony, no handler, no sudden oiling of the kneecaps, just birdsong, a breeze, and a faint sense that your skin is still steaming like leftover flatbread. The path winds gently through low brush and dry grasses, the kind that scratch politely at your ankles as if apologizing for existing. The sun's risen higher, now casting golden light through the neem trees, dappling your bare arms with dancing shadows. Dot, it should feel peaceful. It almost does dot until you hear it, not drums this time. No gongs dot, it's a voice. Faint, male, clipped. Check behind the stables. Your eyes widen. You glance behind you and spot two figures silhouetted against the palace wall. Not guards exactly, but certainly not errand boys. You're not sure if they've seen you, but you're also not eager to find out. Time to go. You bolt, dot, well, shuffle, bolt. Your legs are half jelly, your dhoti is slipping, and your scarf is now determined to strangle. You like a vengeful curtain tie, but adrenaline does what massage could not. It gets you moving. You sprint or something adjacent to sprinting down the path and duck behind a grove of banana trees. A parrot squawks overhead, startled by your dramatic crash landing into a clump of leaves. You freeze. Footsteps. Closer now. You scramble downhill. The terrain changes rockier, uneven, a mix of red dust and roots. The path disappears entirely, replaced by a slope lined with old stones. You glance around for cover and spot a narrow gap between two crumbling walls, ancient palace infrastructure that nobody's bothered to restore. You squeeze through sideways, snag your scarf, untangle it mid-movement, and stumble into a storage yard, stone wheels, rusted tools, A pile of ceremonial parasols, some bent at sad angles. It's as if the palace threw up its least useful items in one quiet corner and forgot about them. Perfect. You crouch behind a carved cartwheel and wait. No footsteps. No voices. Just your own panting and the distant sound of a monkey absolutely losing its mind over something. You whisper a quick prayer to every god whose name you can remember and peek out. No one. You exhale again, loudly enough to attract another goat. This one small, white, and chewing on what may be a royal curtain. You nod at the goat. It does not nod back. You follow the edge of the wall, moving low and fast, until you find another tunnel. Smaller this time, low, cracked, and smelling like regret. You duck in. It's damp, dark. The walls are coated in moss and thyme, but you see light at the other end. Not the glorious, sun-drenched exit from earlier, but faint gray daylight, cool and unceremonial. You reach it, step through. And emerge behind the palace kitchens, which is awkward. Because now you're in the middle of an alley where 6 women are chopping root vegetables with terrifying efficiency. They all look up. Every single one. You freeze. One woman raises an eyebrow. Another whispers to the girl next to her. A third simply says, "Lost again, huh?" You nod, slowly, gravely. They all nod back. Then, like clockwork, the woman with the eyebrow tosses you a warm, folded flatbread. It hits you in the chest with the force of casual pity. You catch it, stunned. "Eat," she says. You do. You chew in silence, surrounded by root vegetables, judgment, and faint maternal sympathy. And just as you're licking oil from your thumb, the voice returns. He was seen near the kitchens. The women exchange glances. One points at you. Through. "There," she says, motioning to the back gate. You don't hesitate. You sprint again, faster this time, fueled by carbs and fear. You burst through the gate, trip over a bucket, keep going. The path behind the kitchens leads to a stone wall, no more than chest height. You don't pause. You climb. The hem of your dhoti snags again. You curse gently, politely, inwardly, because palace etiquette still echoes in your mind, and tumble over the top. You land in a garden. Not a nice one. The forgotten kind. Weeds. Broken clay pots. A sun-bleached statue of a monkey-headed god missing half his face. But beyond it, open fields. No walls, no incense. No more citrus-scented traps. You're almost free. Historians don't mention this part. The getaway. The not-so-graceful exit of honored guests who stayed slightly too long, bathed slightly too dramatically, and perhaps bonded a little too deeply with the bathhouse goat. But you'll remember it. You'll remember the goat, the slap massages, the pigeon, the smell of sesame and sandalwood, now permanently etched into your sinuses. And you'll remember this moment standing on the edge of freedom, barefoot, shiny, and one ceremonial wrap away from total madness. You step forward, out of the garden, out of the palace's shadow, into the dust and light, into the final chapter. You walk, or more accurately shuffle. The fields ahead are wide and open, dotted with dry grass, wildflowers, and the occasional indignant crow perched on a fence post. In the distance you see the dusty silhouette of a village mud hut, a narrow well, a slow-moving cart pulled by an even slower-moving ox. It feels like a place where time naps between breaths. You're no longer surrounded by marble fountains, pigeons in formal formation, or attendants with mysterious oils and passive-aggressive towels. Out here, everything is simple, real, and a little dusty. You keep walking. The palace behind you shrinks slowly, losing its sharp edges in the haze. It begins to feel less like something that happened today, and more like something that happened in a dream you didn't agree to. You pass a row of low trees, their leaves rustling like they know what you've been through and respect you for not crying that much. A farmer, standing beside a stack of bundled reeds, glances your way. He squints. You look down at yourself, still glistening, wrapped in orange silk, decorated with turmeric dots, and clutching a small pouch of dried herbs and good intentions. You nod politely. He nods back. Neither of you says a word, because truly what would you even begin to say? Good morning just escaped from the spiritual assault course that is a royal bath ritual? No, better to nod and keep walking. You find a shady patch beneath a tamarind tree and sit. The ground is warm, but not hot, cracked and dry, but welcoming in that grounded, unceremonial way. No one offers you rose water. No one surprises you with scented mist or emotionally charged cucumbers. Just earth, sky, and the sound of a nearby goat chewing something very stubborn. You reach into your sash and pull out the little pouch your attendant gave you. You open it again. Basil, turmeric, a single brass coin. You have no idea what the coin is worth. It might be ceremonial. It might buy you an onion. Doesn't matter. You smile. Historians rarely record this part. The part where the bath is over, the sacred steam has cleared, and the guest must return to the real world, oiled, changed, and profoundly unsure how to rejoin polite society. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the bath wasn't meant to cleanse you in the traditional sense. Maybe it was a rite of passage, a test of endurance disguised as luxury, a metaphysical boot camp designed by people who think rubbing mustard seeds into your armpits opens spiritual portals. You close your eyes. The breeze tugs gently at your scarf. Somewhere in the distance, a child laughs. A rooster argues with nobody. You breathe in, and for the first time in what feels like days, the air contains no steam, no incense, no threat of sudden chanting. You've made it, sort of. You're still shiny. You still smell like a temple at rush hour, but you've escaped. You survived the bath, and you will never look at a clay oil lamp the same way again. Rise slowly. Your muscles protest. Your dhoti sags. But your spirit, light as a rose petal that wasn't shoved up your nose unexpectedly. One last look over your shoulder. The palace sits distant and still, golden in the morning sun, with pigeons circling lazily above it like feathered gossip. You turn away and you walk on into the dust, into the day, into the rest of your life. And now let your body soften. You're no longer in a palace, no longer stepping barefoot through clouds of incense or being chased by chanting attendants with copper bowls and herbal regrets. That part's behind you, now faded like the last notes of a distant conch shell. Feel the weight of your limbs sinking gently into your bed. Let your shoulders relax, free from the pressure of ancient massages and royal expectations. The steam has cleared. The oils have faded. Even the pigeons have quieted. Breathe in. Slow, steady. No flower petals in the air. Just calm. Just quiet. Imagine the warm breeze from those neem trees, brushing softly against your skin. The dry grass beneath you. The scent of the earth, real, grounded, uncomplicated. No chance. No ceremonial sneezes. Just the hush of dusk settling in. As stars blink awake over that ancient, golden palace in the distance, you've traveled far today. You've been scrubbed, steamed, anointed, confused, and blessed beyond comprehension. But now you've returned, not just from a bath, but from a journey. And your body remembers the warmth, the weightlessness, the surrender. Let that memory carry you into sleep. Let your breath deepen. Let the day fade behind you like footprints. In palace dust, you're safe now. Quiet now. And if by chance your dreams carry you back to carved stone halls and sandalwood-scented echoes, you'll know the way out. You always will. Good night, traveler. Sleep well. Sweet dreams.